In this video, we'll understand convolutional neural networks or CNNs in a very simple explain like IM5 style. We'll see why they are so powerful for images, how convolution and pooling work, and how the final prediction is made. And yes, we'll pause in between with quick quizzes so you can check your understanding. A convolutional neural network is a deep learning model specially designed for image data. Instead of us manually telling the machine which features matter, the CNN learns patterns like edges, textures, and shapes by itself. That is why CNNs became a core building block in computer vision. At first glance, an image is just a matrix of numbers, so you may think we can simply flatten it and send it into a normal neural network. But that throws away spatial relationships. In images, nearby pixels matter together. CNNs keep that local structure and use it to learn much better. Compared to a regular feed-forward network, a CNN is much more efficient for images. It reuses the same filter across the image, so the number of parameters becomes much smaller. This weight sharing helps the model learn patterns anywhere in the image, not just at one fixed position. Now let us look at this in a simple table format. CNN pipeline. Main flow, from image to prediction. Let's pause and see the full CNN pipeline in one view. We begin with the input image, then convolution extracts patterns. Padding and stride control how the filter moves and what output size we get. Pooling reduces dimensions, and finally flattening plus a fully connected layer turns learned features into a class prediction. An image can be seen as a matrix of pixel values. In an RGB image, we actually have three channels: red, green, and blue. As image size increases, the amount of computation also increases a lot. CNNs help reduce this complexity while keeping important features. Now that we've covered CNN basics, let's test what we've learned so far. Here's quiz number 1. See if you can get it right. Question 1. Why is flattening an image directly into a vector often a bad idea? The correct answer is, it removes spatial relationships. Flattening breaks the neighborhood structure of pixels, which is very important in images. Question 2. What is a key advantage of CNNs over plain feed-forward networks for images? The correct answer is, they capture spatial patterns. CNNs are designed to detect local image patterns like edges and shapes, while preserving spatial structure. Question 3. In an RGB image, how many channels are typically present? The correct answer is 3. RGB stands for red, green, and blue, so the image has 3 channels. Now comes the heart of a CNN convolution. A small matrix called a kernel, or filter, moves across the image. At each position, it multiplies with the local patch and sums the values. This produces a feature map which highlights patterns the filter is looking for, like edges or textures. Stride tells us how far the filter moves each time. If the stride is 1, the filter checks almost every possible location. If the stride is 2, it jumps more, so the output feature map becomes smaller. This affects both detail and computation. For color images, the filter is not just width by height, it also has depth. So for an RGB image, the kernel spans all 3 channels. The model performs the operation on each channel, adds the results together, and then includes a bias. That gives one output value at that location. Now that we've covered convolution flow, let's test what we've learned so far. Here's quiz number 2. See if you can get it right. Question 1. What does a kernel do in a CNN? The correct answer is, scans the image for patterns. The kernel moves across the image and detects useful local patterns using multiplication and summation. Question 2. What is the effect of increasing stride? The correct answer is, smaller output feature map. A larger stride means the filter jumps more, so it visits fewer locations and produces a smaller output. Question 3. In multi-channel convolution, the kernel depth should match what? The correct answer is the input depth. For example, an RGB image has depth 3, so the kernel also spans depth 3. Padding helps control output dimensions. In same padding, we add zeros around the border so the output size can remain close to the input size. In valid padding, we do not add extra border values, so the output shrinks. This choice depends on the design goal of the network. After convolution, we often apply pooling. Pooling reduces the height and width of the feature map. This lowers computation and helps the network focus on the most important signals. It also makes the model a bit more robust to small shifts in position. There are two common types of pooling. Max pooling picks the largest value in a region, while average pooling takes the mean. Max pooling is usually preferred because it preserves the strongest activation and can suppress noisy responses better than averaging everything together. Once the CNN has extracted useful features, the final feature maps are flattened into a vector. This vector goes into one or more fully connected layers, which learn how to combine those features for classification. At the end, softmax converts the output into probabilities for each class. Now that we've covered final stages, let's test what we've learned so far. Here's quiz number 3. See if you can get it right. Question 1. What is the main purpose of padding? The correct answer is to control output dimensions. Padding adds border values, usually zeros, so we can manage how much the output shrinks. Question 2. Which pooling method usually keeps the strongest activation? The correct answer is max pooling. Max pooling selects the largest value from a region, preserving the strongest signal. Question 3. What happens right before the fully connected layer in a typical CNN? The correct answer is the feature maps are flattened. Flattening converts the final feature maps into a vector that the fully connected layer can process. Nice work! If you understood the flow from input image to convolution, pooling, flattening, and softmax, you've got the core idea of CNNs. Rewatch the tricky parts, especially stride, padding, and pooling, and you'll become even more confident. See you in the next learning video.